Nietzsche to me or what? I I never should have left that YouTube video on. You know, it was a lot nicer around here before I left that YouTube video on. Nietzsche, Silverbird. Okay. Um. No, I'm not going to explain Nietzsche to you. You can't understand Nietzsche unless you understand all the German philosophers from around that time. Well, I just like Nietzsche. He talked about the Superman, and I'm going to be the Superbird. No, you're not going to be the Superbird. Um, no, no, no. You are not going to be the Superbird. Um, and if you want to study Nietzsche, you have to study Schopenhauer first. Who the hell is he? Well, hold on a second, ladies and gentlemen. I believe this is one of our guests for tonight. Puddin'head Books. Hello. Oh yeah, we have Puddin'head Live tonight. Yep, we're gonna have our Puddin'head Live show, and oh, you have to go to Dave Getchick's homepage, his profile, or look on your Facebook feed for Dave Getchick is live. And what? It should be on your feed. Yes. Okay. Um, well, let's try to fill this later because I want to say hi to everybody who's watching us right at the moment here. Um, you know, if you could go to several places. I have not posted it yet on other people's sites yet, um, because I'm going to do that. If you go to the Dave Getchick profile page on Facebook right now, or if anybody out there in Facebook land who's watching us wants to tell their friends to go to the Facebook page on the Dave Getchick's Facebook feed on YouTube, on Facebook, you could see the show. So, and okay, thank you, sir. Thanks for calling, and call Puddin'head Press anytime. Bye bye. Our our guest tonight is going to be Janet Kuipers and going to be Terry Jacobus. And then afterwards, we're going to be reading some poetry by Bob Trombello. I'm going to be sharing the Facebook feed around Facebook after we get on and rolling with the show. How'd you ever explain that other thing? What other thing? The total do I don't know if you're going to understand this. Oh, I can understand anything. Okay. There's two worlds, okay? The tonal and the nagual. They're actually two parts of this world. Okay, there's not actually two different worlds. You could say there's two different universes. Okay, I get that. Okay, yeah. Which one are we in? Well, we are in both of them. We're primarily in the tonal universe. What do you mean? Okay, let me explain this in a way that I think a bird could understand. If you peck something, then it's in the tonal universe. Okay, so I peck it with my beak, with your beak. Okay, you peck with your beak. I don't use that. No, no, you use your beak to peck with. Okay, we're live. Okay, you use your beak to peck with, and and the and in the Nagual universe, there's everything that you could peck. So if I could peck it, it's Nagual. Kind of. If you could peck it, it's Nagual. But if you actually peck it, then it turns into tonal. Okay. Well, I don't know if that makes any sense. I know it probably doesn't make any sense to you because you're a bird brain. But I have to go over here and I have to check something. So if you'll excuse me for a second, we're live, and this is Puddin'head Press Live. There goes Dave again. He's over there, and he's trying to do something technical around the corner, and he's trying to impress the ladies by doing that. He really doesn't know what he's doing, though. But I think everybody's figured that out already, including our guests tonight. We got some really cool guests tonight. We got somebody named Janet and somebody named Terry Jacobus, who's a well-known Chicago poet that nobody's heard for a long time. And then this Bob guy, it's like the anniversary of his death, but they didn't tell me anything about that. And I don't know any of these people, so I don't know what they're doing on my show. This is my show. It's not your show. And I'm going to start the show. So I'm going to get ready to bring on our first guest. Who's our first guest? Okay, the first guest is our first guest. You got me all confused. You were born confused. Okay, I'm sure you're gonna like the show. I don't like anything. Okay, fine. Um, anyways, our first guest is an ex-Chicagoan. She moved to Austin, Texas recently, and she's been spreading the word of Chicago poetry from Texas. And I'm really glad to have her on the show. Um, she's the editor of Scars. She's the publisher of Scars Publications, and she is the editor of Down in the Dirt magazine, and she's the editor of Children, Churches, and Daddies. She's ran a lot of different venues around the Chicago area, and she's everybody in Chicago's favorite poet. She was most recently the host at the Gallery Cabaret, which I took over from her, and I'm glad to have her on here, and we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff that we never talked about before, like how she got started in publishing and how she got started as a poet. So I'm going to push the bird away. Push the bird away a little. Help! He's abusing me! No, I'm not abusing you. I'm the star of this show. No, you're not the star of this show. Our guests are the star of this show. You know that. So you gotta be next to our guest. I'm not next to anybody. I know you're not. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to put my phone back here. And yes, you could call us up and see how do we get on the show. Well, you look for Dave Getchick live in your feed, or pretty soon I'm going to go and I'm going to post it on some other people's pages. So it's going to be posted around the internet, so you're going to be able to find it. But ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to the talented and the lovely Janet Kuipers.
Hello, hello, hello. Talented came before lovely. I appreciate that.
Well, should I change that around?
No, no,
Okay.
I appreciate that. I think when my husband was first saying first started stressing how intelligent I was and then how beautiful I was, and I'm like, I appreciate that you have them both in there, but you have it in a cooler order. So thank you. Hi,
Hi,
what
how
a
are you?
talent. I'm just splendid, and I'm sorry that I can't see the view, but I believe that my husband John has shared it on my own page already. I don't know because I'm not there,
Oh,
but
cool.
I'm just spreading the word. I'm
Cool.
trying to get people to know about it. So
Cool.
I'm trying.
Thanks for being on the show. Now
Thanks for having me.
you're actually a native Chicago suburbanite, right?
I was born in the southwest suburbs, Palos Park, Orland Park area. I went to Carl Sandburg High School,
Okay.
uh, but
Carl
I
Carl Sandburg
was
High School is a high school in Chicago Ridge, I believe. It's over
Orland
by
Park.
Orland Park. It's over in Orland Park, and they've done a lot of stuff for their. They got a really good student magazine there, and they've always been very active in the poetry scene, um, larger poetry scene. So Carl Sandburg is a cool school to have gone to. Did you learn a lot about Carl Sandburg at the school?
No, not at all. And when I was younger, they were saying that we could push you ahead and go to another school because I was between two districts, and I was like, no. And this was before going to high school, and I'm like, no, I'd like to just stay where I was. I was already picked on enough for being a smart kid. I didn't want to be picked on at a whole new school, so I would just stay the route that I was in, and I went to Carl Sandburg, and I only minimally did poetry there. It was actually when I got to college that I did a lot more writing of poetry
You got to college.
and working on a magazine in college.
Where did you get to college?
University of Illinois, Champaign Urbana. I did
Okay.
not go to Chicago. in Central Illinois for it. So, my brothers and sisters went, all of them. Actually, my one oldest brother, Ed, he was an architect. He was in Chicago, but the rest of us went to U of I, different majors. So,
No, you.
and we were all, and if anybody knows anything about University of Illinois, we were all heartbroken when Chief Illinois was banned and they got rid of him from our school. And because I was doing lots of Christmas stuff, I was actually working on Nutcrackers, and I decided to try to fashion one into Chief Illinois from the University of Illinois, which I'm still working on. I've got feathers and I'm trying to color them different colors and stuff. And it's been like a year I've been trying to work on this thing, but what a silly aside for you. But yes.
Do you remember Dina Stewart? She just posted that she used to swim against Carl Sandburg High School. I think she was from. I
Oh,
think. I
really?
think. I think Dina was from Oak Lawn actually, and Vito
Um,
Carly was from down in Oak Lawn. So there's a little. That area is creating poets.
I had two girlfriends at U of I that went to Oak Lawn High School. One was a cheerleader. I don't know what the other one did at Oak Lawn High School, but yeah, that area definitely. But yeah,
Okay.
it was a bit further south out than Oak Lawn.
You had a magazine during high school?
I did not. No, I started. I helped. I think I might have designed a little bit for one, but then or for review. But then I said you could submit stuff as well, but it would be a blind thing, and so I got a lot of stuff published in a magazine that was called Lindsay Woolsey in college. I don't know if it ran long after that, but that was the magazine, um, and it was cool. And I think you were asking me before about how CCND started. I
Yeah.
think you were
T-
thinking of
t-
wanting to ask me that.
tell me how CC&D started. How did
Well,
CC&D started, and when? I mean, I
CC,
remember. I remember
CCND.
seeing it in the what you call it, the Poets Market years and years and years ago, and I said, what a bizarre name for a magazine. Why is it called CC? Why is it called, okay? Children,
Children,
churches,
churches, and daddies.
and daddies. Okay.
Yes. It's
Why?
named after it's named after a poem that talks about the dysfunctionality of those things. Which, if you go to the main page for Scars Publications, which is named after a piece of prose of mine, if you go to the main page for CC&D, it says, "Hey, do you want to know where the name CC&D came from? Here's a link to the poem that was the whole basis for it in the first place." When I got out of college, I was submitting things that I thought were good, and everyone and their brother was rejecting me. I was straight out of school and I didn't know what to do. But then I was getting samples because this was back in snail mail days. You didn't have email access for online magazines. And all of the magazines that I would be getting were from editors that were rejecting me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I'm a designer. I know how to do these things. I can, figure this stuff out. And I just decided to name something without putting much thought into it after a poem of mine. And that's what the magazine name came from. And that would be when there would be snail mail letters that say, "Hello, I'm a Christian mother of 4, and here are my 5 rhyming poems." And I'm like, oh God, this is so wrong. This isn't working at all. So the byline for it is the unreligious, non-family oriented literary and art magazine. And people will send submissions. They're like, well, I don't know how religious this is. I'm like, no, talking religion is fine. It's just don't get the idea that this is, hi, I'm a Christian mother of 4, and these are, that's not the bent that the magazine is on. So we've taken things from prisoners. We've taken things from around not only this country or this continent, but from anywhere from all through Europe to India to Africa, which is really cool, which is one of the wonderful things about having the internet, because I started having it in 94, but then my account had to close for eWorld, I think it was. And so I started one in 96 with AOL, and then I said, well, forget it. After a while, I might as well get a domain for scars. And of course, when you say I want a domain for scars, well, here are your things for wound repair. And,
Yeah.
people pick something entirely different for it. And of course, scars.com, that kind of stuff is taken. But I said, I do a lot of stuff by the time I was doing open mic stuff starting in, I think, 95. but by 97 I was doing features and I was starting to video record them. And so when I started running my own open mic as well, I started um, recording the beginnings of it because YouTube wouldn't let me have long enough content until I was able to, and I could do the whole show. And so then it seemed really fitting to be able to say Scars.tv because I've got a lot of um, videos and audios, and I knew people from Tennessee who were sending me lots of audio clips, and they were setting up music to my poetry and stuff. So I'm like, Scars.tv seems like a good angle to put that on if I'm going to take a domain for Scars publications.
When
And a little aside, in Texas, and you had said, well, she's a Chicagoan, but she's now moved to, and I'm like, no, I'm always a Chicagoan. I'll live here till I'm 90, and I will still be a Chicagoan. So don't think of otherwise. I like people here, and that's all well and good, but I'm going to be a Chicagoan. But anywho, I found out, and John's like, we should get you like personalized plates for your car, which is why I've got CHI Space Poet for my my sedan. But we had a convertible, and it used to have Scars 93 as a personalized plate in Illinois, and we found out that we could have a period in a vanity plate.
oh
So
really?
I could literally have Scars.tv for a license plate, which I do, which is my URL. And it sits in my driveway, this car that says Scars.tv on it, which is awesome.
Well,
Little aside.
Scars.tv. Um,
Is
why
yeah.
Scars?
It was the same way that I thought with Children, Churches, and Daddies. It was a prose poem of mine that was about how we all have scars in different ways. Like how when I was riding my roller skating in the driveway and I fell, and my parents came out. They said, "Did you crack the sidewalk?" You know, scars, and then like all these different kind of things of what could make scars. And these are the things that a lot of poets and like think about as well. So it seemed like a really good title just to have for
No,
a publishing
it
organization.
is a really good title, and I'm thinking of something that I one of the reasons I started Puddin'head is because people didn't want to publish me. There was a whole
and
bunch of us.
and then as soon as I did that, people are like, "Oh, we want to take these things that we once rejected from you." And I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, fascinating." Oh, and I have to do a little aside. I saw a long time ago that Dave had a wine glass in one of
Oh,
his feeds, and so because somebody gave me a Poet 2019 wine glass, I had to put wine into it so that I would have a Poet 2019 glass. Yay! You got a close up on the wine.
toast me.
We will toast. There we go.
Okay. There we
Toast.
go.
Yeah.
Toast. Okay.
Oh,
That's the first internet toast I ever did.
awesome.
So
Prost. Well, it's not a German wine, but sorry.
I'm drinking a cheap yellowtail, the Cabernet Shiraz mix. I think it's really good, and I should do a wine
Okay.
show.
Well, my husband. They feel silly to keep saying my husband John was brewing beer and stuff before we had met, and so he got back into that again. And he's like, "I'm going to work on wine as well." And he's like, "Well, I want to be working on this red wine, so we're buying bottles so that we can drink them and save them for making wine."
So,
And he's done that with a Riesling. The Hutka Riesling is really yummy, and it's named after his family name before it was changed in the United States. And is a
wow.
Wolf Campus one. And oh, he's making an Enigma wine. You will appreciate this, science guy. He's making an Enigma wine, and he's like, "I've got to come up with something sciencey." And I'm like, "Well, we've got these electric balls with the," and he's like, "That's kind of cool." But and then like, "Well, it looks like a line." I'm like, "You need something," and I looked at it and I said, "Walk the plank." Thank
John,
you,
John,
thank you.
John's a
John's
science
like,
guy
"You
too.
win."
um,
John's like, "You win. That gets it. It's not walk the plank. It's walk the plank. Spell it correctly, and that will be the name of his Enigma wine."
Rich Emerson might be drinking the same wine that I am, and Lynn West says hi, and Vito Carly's
Hi,
watching us.
Lynn Rich.
So everybody in Chicago, I think, misses you. Um,
Oh,
now,
I miss you all.
what year do you think you started Scars publication?
90, the beginning of 93.
Beginning of
90, ended 92, beginning of 93. CC&D started, and by the way, it's easier to say CC ampersand D than Children, Churches, and Daddies.
okay.
And one of the logo changes I've got just says CC&D, but it says everywhere that it's Children, Churches, and Daddies, and the universe, I think, knows this. But CC&D started, the first issue was in June of 1993.
Okay.
So,
So
yeah.
CC&D started when Scars Publications started at the same time.
Right, right at the same time.
What was your first publication?
That I was published in.
No, that you published with Scars.
The first issue of CC&D, which was out in
Oh,
June,
okay.
and it had a similar cover to the first book I ever had done, which is called Whip Chest in the Attic.
Okay. What the
And
first book? What year did the first book come out?
that was to 92, 93. That was when Scars was starting with it, because people are like, oh yeah, we can publish your book, it's only $10,000.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, I can do that for less. And so I did something like that and would have copies of the book and donate crates to people because I would buy too many back in the day. um, Hundreds and hundreds of books, but
Now, see,
that was the first book that I had done.
who was submitting, and how did you get your submissions for the first CC&D?
Um, I was in the Poets magazine. You said you had seen them in
No,
the magazine,
the Poets Market.
the Poets markets, and so people had seen it through that, and I remember old names. Paul Wyman, Mary Winters. These are like from the first year. And Alan Catlin, Linla Lifshin. These people found
Mm-hmm.
me. And Alan Catlin has seen me again. Has like sent me things just recently and has been in issues this year and last. You don't know the name Sira McGuire. He was from Nashville.
I know the name because I know that he's done your publications before. I've seen him in CC&D, and I've seen
In
you talk
CC&D in
about
the
him.
early days, like mad. And he had said to me, and he was doing things with an open mic in Nashville, and he had said, thank you so much for this. What can I do for you? And I said, start a magazine and publish me. And so he started Penny Dreadful Press and a Penny Dreadful Review, and
Oh,
out
really?
there, and we there, yeah. Yeah, on my suggestion,
So,
which I love it, and I love him, and he is great, and I don't know if he is viewing because I let him know about it, but
so
and I hurt him.
it's the poetic child of of CC&D.
Well, he had his own thing before, so I'm not gonna. I just think it's funny that He's like, what can I do for you? You're doing, and I'm like, start a magazine and publish me. And so he started one, which is awesome.
But
Penny Dreadful.
before 1993, before CC&D, before Scars publication, when did you have your first? When did you write your first poem, for example?
I guess that would also explain my first publication as well.
Okay.
I think, Dave, you know the first poem I ever wrote. I was 9 years old. It's the only one that I will admit to that rhymes that I like,
The one
and it's
Under
called
the Sea?
Under the Sea. Yes,
Under the
and
Sea was your first poem?
it was my first poem. It's
Like,
for a class.
if you
And I didn't know what a manatee was then, and my mom explained it to me, and I'm like, okay. And there were so many breakdowns of rhymes in the thing, and it was a fun little thing that it actually was submitted and was published in Reed magazine. So
if
I guess I was a published author at 9.
if you go to if you go to the if you go to the internet and go to YouTube and put in uh, Dave Getchick Under the Sea, you see a version of Under the Sea that I read for Janet.
Yay!
I think it's on your YouTube channel. So you were 9 years old. So
Yeah.
that was in the very very extremely late 80s when you were 9 years old. Um, and and
That's good.
but there was no live readings at Carl Sandburg at the time.
No,
Where
and
did you
I didn't know
start
anything about poetry then.
performing publicly? What how and where did you start performing publicly?
Um, I think probably. Oh, my husband John is showing me because of his sister. We're working on a drawing version of a color version of Under the Sea, and he wanted me to explain to you that this was a manatee. I don't know if people can see it or not, but this is the manatee frame that Cindy had done.
Tilt it a little bit. Now we can see the manatee perfect.
Oh, yeah, go perfect, wonderful.
Perfect
So anyway.
manatee. Um,
Very good manatee. Cindy's very good at that. You were asking for where I performed first?
Yeah, where would you
in
perform first? Now
in
CC&D is Children, Churches, and Daddy. That's what CC&D is. Um,
correct.
and
And if you want to know about it, you can go to scars.tv/ccd. So
and Janet also was doing a magazine called Down in the Dirt, and I think you've
yes,
combined Down in the Dirt with CC&D at this point, right?
I have not combined them. The thing was back in the day, in the snail mail days, Down in the Dirt was a little supplement section that I created inside CC&D, Children, Churches, and Daddies magazine issues. It appeared a couple times, and that's all it was. And I didn't think anything else about it, and so I let that go. And then after after lots of changes and quitting my job to travel around the country, and then right at the tail end of that, being stopped in an intersection and almost killed by a couple of cars, I had to start reshaping my life and think of what I was doing with my life. And I thought I wanted to submerge myself more into CC&D. And I thought, wait a minute, I had that thing Down in the Dirt. Maybe I can make that something. And I had it under somebody else's name because I didn't want to be
Who who
saying, oh, well,
who
look at me
who
editing.
who was
But
who? What was the name you were using? The
the
secret
name of
the
the
secret
person that was
name the secret name of Janet Kuipers was what?
no, no, no. The name of the editor for the first decade was Alexand. Oh, you might appreciate this, Alexandria Rand. Was her? I thought you would appreciate that. She's a waitress outside of Philly. So anyway, it was just something that I was like, I'm doing all this work for the magazine, but I didn't want to be saying, "Oh, look at her, she's just editing more crap" or something. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so then after a while, I was like, forget it. Just get your name out of it. I'm doing this work anyway, so I might as well just own up to it and just do that as well.
So,
And everybody and their brother loves the name Down in the Dirt.
mm-hmm.
Loves it.
But
Everyone. That is why I had to start saying, okay, there's a max word limit, 1,600 words. You can send me long poems, that's fine, but I'm not reading novels. Forget it, forget it, forget it. So, and I still get a lot of stuff. So,
you but you
because everybody likes the name Down the Dirt.
where did you first start performing? Because you're a really good performer. A lot of the
Thank you.
work that you do is monologue-ish. A lot of the
Yeah,
work you do is stories. I mean, a lot of the work you do is not poetry.
correct.
I mean, it's stories, it's monologues, it's remembrances of things past.
Yes.
Where did you start doing the performing live?
Um,
A lot of your performances are theatrical. So was did that come out of the blue, or was there some kind of theatrical training in there somewhere?
looking way back in my history, the first time I performed anywhere was singing. It was in college, doing a cappella stuff. I'd work with somebody else, and we'd be singing. They might be giants. Istanbul, not Constantinople harmony, and I'd be doing the low, and the guy would be doing the high, and we'd just be, hamming it up, but having a great time doing it. I mean, I sang in choirs in school, in grade school, I think, in junior high, but I didn't read poetry really until I started in Chicago in, I think it was 95, when with the first time I had read was at Yammer.
At
Does
Yammer.
anybody remember Yammer?
Um,
Lisa Heminger. But
Yammer was a reading on the North Side. It was hosted by Lisa Heminger. And what Yammer was at what bar though? Um,
it's a P.
what was it?
Why I can't. John just said it starts with a P. I cannot
It
remember,
starts
but
with a
it's
P.
closed now.
Yeah,
It was at Irving and Sheffield,
it was
I
at Irving
believe.
and Sheffield. I'm sure Vito Carly's going to tell us the name of it in a second because he would
Splendid.
remember. Um, but he hasn't told us yet. So I need somebody
Yeah.
on the other end to like look all. I need an assistant. I need somebody to look up all this stuff for me. But so
And
Lisa
and so
Heminger
that was a
in 1990, in the mid 90s, it was a great reading. It ran late at night. I think it got over at 2 o'clock in the morning, and but it would go on for 4 hours and
and back in the day
nonstop
when it
wall to
first
wall
started, there
poetry.
were and back in the day when it first started, there were like four of us, me and Joanna Marshall, Beth, and oh, and John just yelled it was at Joy Blue. That's where it was,
Joy Blue.
which does not start with a P, so John didn't have it on that one.
Yeah.
Um, but it was just us sitting there with a cup of water up in a circle and reading to each other. And I would read, things like Too Far and ones that I'm known for at the time for. But then it got huge. I believe she had Tom Henke become an assistant of
Yeah, an
some sort.
assistant.
That was right about, or yeah, sidekick or whatever.
Yeah, well,
And that was right about the time when after I was traveling, I was going to travel and go around the country, which she gave me a mini feature there, which doesn't really happen there. But then I said, at least if I'm going to be moving to Pennsylvania, in the middle, in a suburb that had nothing, but at least a half hour away, I could get a post office in Intercourse, Pennsylvania. So I said, if I'm going to be there, I might as well have a good address for my magazine. So I did that. But we were only there for 6 months. Job wasn't that great, or the environment was worse. I don't know what it was.
You were living in Chicago at the time that you discovered Yammer, that you started
Yes.
hanging out at Yammer. What other early venues did you go to?
The well, as you might have gathered, David Rubin's piece, show, which was at Cafe Aloha,
Mm-hmm.
which then went to the cafe that Charlie Newman then took it over, and after that, I took it over from there. Which then you took it over. I'm so sorry that they're in closed down now, and you can't continue there right now. But we're Anacron and Crystal at
Damon North of Milwaukee.
Yeah, you were talking about it just last week at
Okay, there was Estelle's. There was the Mad Bar was near
Estelle's.
there. There was the
Mad Bar I went to
Borderline.
more than Estelle's. Mad Bar I went to more than Estelle's.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
I think I stopped running Estelle's in '96, and I know I didn't feature you there. But you probably read a lot with Shappy, and of course you've gone to Weeds, you've gone to,
Yeah.
but also there's some other places you've read at that were um, like only Janet Kuiper's performances. I remember one in Lake County. There was some little place in
every,
Lake County.
every once in a while I would get features at locations, and that was at a hookah lounge. That was, I can't even remember what the place was called, but they did video nonsense, and that you could have hour-long shows.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, and I know that Wes Hines put up posts and stuff. He would do performances there as well, and it was fun to do that because as I had started doing shows. Here's a funny one for you. After I had this travel around the country, was in an accident, I came back. I'm like, wait, David Rubin has this thing, and he did it weekly. And then I have an accident, engaged, get married, and come back. So nearly a year goes by, and I say, hi, Dave. And he's like, oh, Janet, we're doing stuff. Janet, you're on the scene. You should have quarterly features. And I thought,
quarterly features.
I was like, on the scene. I've been in a hospital. I was on the other side of the country. I've gotten married. I haven't been around much in the past year, but okay, I'm on the scene. And so I did quarterly features until I think then with Charlie it was like just once a year, which is what I did when I was taking it over at the cafe and then at the Gallery Cabaret.
I guess maybe you were unforgettable. So, no, wait, an accident. You were in Pennsylvania when you had an accident?
No, it was before that actually. I met John 6 months maybe after I was in this car accident. I had just traveled around the country by car.
Mm-hmm.
I was considering plans of going to Europe, but I hadn't made anything set yet. I was driving to visit my parents in the southwest suburbs, and I was stopped in an intersection. According to eyewitness reports, I saw in my rearview mirror that at a hill, because the light had changed, but we're all still standing still because cars have to wait to move.
Yeah.
Apparently saw that over the hill, somebody sees in this 55-mile-per-hour road that the light is green. So they were speeding, didn't look. They were texting, and I could see them just plowing, like coming right toward me. There was a motorcyclist in front of me and a van in front of them, so I turned the wheels of my car to the left. To not hit a motorcyclist, where the car then knocked me into oncoming traffic, which, they don't expect me to be there, and another car hit me. Reports say that there were skid marks from my tires for 108 feet.
Wow.
And actually, John was going
That's on my way back.
He was on his way back from something for an MRI for something from school, and he was like, "Why is this intersection all blocked?" And he had no idea what it was. And apparently, a really distant cousin of his was one of the EMTs
Oh wow.
that came to me. And they were looking, and they're like, "I think we need to get a helicopter. She's not in a good way." And they contact them, and they say it'll be 20 minutes before a helicopter shows, and they're just looking down the road, and you're like, it's 2 miles down this same road just to get to the hospital. I think we can just do it. We won't get this, and we'll just go and take off. And so,
So it was a bad accident, but you survived it okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Well, whether or not I survived it okay or not is it's all subjective.
okay. Did um did it change the way you that close to the screen there? We could really see really shows your face well. Um,
Oh well, it's lovely. Sorry, I'll do what I can.
um, but did that change your poetry at all? Almost dying. Did almost dying change your poetry?
I I think it's I think it changed me.
Okay.
Um, John might be able to judge that better. Um, I mean, I couldn't tell you because I know that time changes everyone and
Hmm.
everything, so I can't speak to whether or not I'm sure it changed me, but I cannot say how.
Okay.
I'm not one to be able to judge myself. I know that I still write things very news editorial wise, like my major at the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana,
No.
or or whatnot. That was my major, and I like to freak people out when I say when I went there, I started as a computer science engineer.
No,
Um,
you didn't have well, like you didn't like go down a tunnel and the light shined on you and said you are a poet or anything like that.
no, nothing like that.
Okay.
But I just thought with the life experiences and getting older, I said I don't think I want to be doing this with my life. But I find myself writing and taking pictures still.
Now what
So I thought journalism was the way to go with the focus on graphic design, which is what I still do.
you do a
Ergo
lot
sense.
of photography work. Did you ever
Mhm.
have any photography training?
Um, Other than what courses I've had in college, if a news editorial journalism major could have a minor, I would have a minor in photography.
Uh huh.
But they don't offer that for your bachelor degrees. So I have the equivalent of a minor in photography, but
Okay.
this just because of all the coursework I've had. So I just like it. The end. Yeah.
um. So Scars Publication. How can we find Scars Publications?
Well, as I said, the website's pretty straightforward. SCARS.TV.
Hmm.
Um, Oddly enough, I find people when they find my own webpage or my own pages through Facebook, they find Scars Publications on there because one day Facebook is like, "Hey, you should have a page for your Scars Publications." I'm like, "Okay, I'll do that." And they're like, "Now you have to pay to get people to show up." And I'm like, "Screw that. If anybody wants to see it, they can. But I've got another website for that, and so I don't think about it that much for that page." Scars.tv is, well, there I've told you, Scars.tv. If, I mean, I could tell people to snail mail me submissions, but why bother
Okay.
when email is faster?
CC&D is the same way. They go to Scars Publication. Um, is that correct? Now, CC&D is there a submission time that you take submissions, or is it year round?
It's year round. And unlike Down in the Dirt, there isn't a word limit on short stories.
Hmm.
Uh, there is no theme other than I don't like, as I had said, the blatantly religious stuff. Just because of the name, I have to stress that. Um, as I would describe things, if you were just saying stories, make us feel like we've been there. Just telling slices of life and realistic things is all well and good. The directions or the explanations or what we look for is astoundingly similar in both CC&D, Children, Churches, and Daddies, and Down in the Dirt magazine, since, I'm doing them both. Um, the only difference is I'm not going to publish them both. You're not going to get published in both magazines. So if
Hmm.
one is accepted one, the other one won't take it. Oh, this is one thing that people love more than sliced bread about Scars.tv and the magazines. When we accept something, and I have to thank my computer guru, John, for this one, we have a section in there called the writing section. Every piece of accepted writing is uploaded to a writing section underneath your name. It appears in a separate framed page where on one side of it, it is a list of your names. And if you click on it, it'll show what you've written. You can click on it and their writing will appear in the larger frame.
Wow.
It'll also have to the magazines that they've been in or whatnot as well. So Dave, if you've ever had anything published in CCND, your name would be in there. I don't know if it is. So I could.
You don't yell at me. It isn't.
Okay, if you haven't said anything, I don't know.
I'll send you some stuff one of these days.
Not a problem.
Give us a performance piece by you. Give us a poem. Give us a story.
I had
Wesley's watching us too.
Hi, Wes.
He's watching us somewhere. I'm not sure what site he's watching us from.
Out in California, perchance? Where is he?
Out in California, but he might be watching us from the show is showing at a whole bunch of different web pages. So
cool.
I'm not sure where he's watching us from. I can't see him, but he made some comments. He liked what you're doing. He gave you a thumbs up.
Thank you, Wes. That he knows I love him too. And it was fun when I first moved here that he was out of the way in another town and he was able to come and visit a couple times before they moved again. Would you like me to share? Oh, he's drinking his wine. I should toast you again.
I'm drinking my wine. Toast you again.
Toast you again. In my triple glass. Would you like me to read 3 pieces for the ending of this so that we can leave it like that?
Well, read 3 pieces and then I'll ask you a couple more questions.
Splendid.
Splendid.
Okay. I was trying to find pieces that I hadn't shared at features in Chicago when I came back to visit. So, and they're on different themes, and you'll find out how I can be very much of a storyteller. This first piece is called "Protecting Peace Can Put You in Prison." The first Nobel Peace Prize was granted in 1901. The first Nobel Peace Laureate to die in prison was Karl von Ossietzky, detained by Nazi Germany. He died in prison in 1938. But there's a new death. Do not fret, because it seems that peace can be squashed in any millennium. Do you remember the Tiananmen Square riots back in 1989, or at least the iconic photo of a student in front of a truck, in front of a tank? Well, that student didn't battle the Chinese government on their own and win. They had help from Liu Xiaobo, the man for peace, who was revered for his work. But the Chinese government stopped him in 2008 because he was drafting and promoting a manifesto promoting peaceful political change. And for this, the Chinese government imprisoned him for subversion. Yes, for subversion. This man was sentenced to 11 years in prison. And while in prison, he was granted the Nobel Peace Prize. During that Oslo Awards ceremony, they even left an empty chair for their imprisoned man of honor. And now the Chinese government bears responsibility for more than the imprisoning of Nobel Peace Laureate, who not only promoted political peace, but for failure to properly diagnose and treat his illness. Because on July 13th, the imprisoned Peace Prize winner died in detention of liver cancer at age 61. And sure, we can look around the room and think that we are nice to other people, that we respect other people. And we may think that as we look around that other people feel the same way about us. And it's wonderful to surround yourself with people like you, who think like you, who cushion you from anyone who may think differently. Because when you stay in your bubble, everything seems fine. It's only when we see those who choose to fight, who are then trounced upon and downtrodden only because they support a peaceful coexistence, that staying with supporters is seldom the solution. Peace with the ones you choose to know is one thing. Peace with a mortal enemy is another, when they decide that you were at fault for some unknown reason. So maybe the key to promoting peace is not to share our ideas with those like-minded souls you're near, but to find people that are least like you, religiously, racially, politically, and then just extend your hand in peace, and then see who will take your hand. I get applause
You
from
know,
one person. Thank you,
yeah,
thank you.
you know what? You did a great performance, and one person clapped, but my ego is soaring high because you did a performance just for me,
I
cause
did.
yeah, you did, and I'm the only one who gets
And,
a clap, and
oh, and that was awesome. And thank you for that. I don't get to hear claps like that. That's so cool.
hey, oh, applause,
Yes,
applause,
yay! And the crowd goes wild.
because
Sorry.
when you do a Zoom reading, you don't hear the other people that are applauding. Lynn West says bravo though,
Yeah.
and Wesley Hines says good poem, good reading. But you do a Zoom reading. How often do you do your Zoom reading?
It's the Zoom meetings are for an open mic that I do here in Austin. It it the name was started when I did a show. I believe it was in 2014, and I gave everyone cards so that they could have their poetic license. And so I said, I'm going to call this poetic license. So once a month on the first Sunday of every month from 3:30 to 5:30 Central Standard Time, we run a Zoom meeting, and every one of their brothers invited. I believe Dave has been there. I believe Lynn West has been there. I believe Vito has been there, and there are people from. It's cool when people from Chicago and from Austin, and then our Zoom sponsor, so I can have an unlimited sponsor time, is John F. McMillan from New York, and so then I get people from and other friends from Leeds. I've got and it's cool to have people from around the world coming instead of just having the handful of people that might come to a bookstore the way it originally was before pandemic times.
So how could
So
people get into that?
Poetic license. Contact me if you want more info about it. But there is a Zoom meeting that runs, and I usually set up an event page for it that will show the link to it that
On,
anybody can go to
on
and be a part of it.
are you on Facebook?
What me? Janet Kuipers?
Hey, Janet
Kuipers?
Janet
Keepers?
Kuipers.
Yes.
K
Yes,
U
I am.
Y Y P
K-U-P-E.
E R S.
Correct, sir.
In
Very
fact, you
correct.
could find her
Yeah.
right now on Facebook and send her a message if you want to.
Except I won't respond right away because I happen to be here. I
Oh,
heart
okay.
you. You can respond anytime. Well, you get the idea. Busy times.
Yeah,
I can
yes,
beat
yes,
you here only has 8 arms. Can't do it all.
yes, Lynn, she's on Facebook.
Sweet. Yep.
um,
Yes, Lynn.
what's
Yeah, she.
what's your email?
Um, I love sharing it, but if you know my name at gmail.com, janetkuipers@gmail.com is the easiest way.
With
Otherwise,
no
Scottish
no
Publications has
space, no dot, or anything
no
in
space,
between.
nothing.
Okay.
No, no. I also hear that if you have a dot or period in your name, if you don't have it in there, it will still get through to you. But I don't know that for positive
I,
because my husband does that, but I don't know. So, but yeah, just my name at Gmail. It's pretty straightforward. Or if you see me on Facebook, say, hey, how can I get a hold of you? And like, whatever, I can do that too. It's fine. Or find me on Scars.tv and say, hey, you, or
give
something.
give us another poem.
Okay, this is actually a very, very recent one. I'm saving my fluffy light one for the end one, but this one I'm saying for Dave. I hope you will appreciate it. This is a poem. It's sciencey. And it's called
Sciency.
"You." Yay! And it's titled "You Have No Idea." I am telling you that because those are the last words of the poem. You've been warned.
Okay.
It's titled "You Have No Idea." We try to understand the details. We research, we study the core of the matter, and we believe we understand it all until we find out that we're missing pieces. We're only seeing a tiny fraction of what makes things work the way they do. Astrophysicists and science philosophers have tried to unravel the key to the universe, and now, only now, speculate a theory. And these science types live on theories. I mean, that's why they call it the Big Bang Theory. We may have evidence, but no proof. So, in this effort to understand why the pieces don't all seem to fit into place, they make a theory they can't know. For if something controls the physics, controlling things in ways we don't understand, then maybe we're not meant to see what controls it all. If there is something these science types don't understand, they don't turn to a god, for it's their thing to come up with theories that they can try to prove or disprove. So they came up with dark matter. They research and they look for evidence so they can hypothesize about this magical stuff, this theoretical stuff we can't see. And the only way they can find proof is if in their experiments they found nothing, because a lack of anything is the nature of their theory. For it's impossible to even see their dark matter theory in the first place. So, after all this guesswork, if things still don't make enough sense to them, they hypothesize then about something called dark energy. Something else they can't actually prove, because they think maybe this impossible theory number 2 is the force driving everything in the universe apart. That would make sense. Look at these puzzles. Look at the preposterous nature of the lack of a preponderance of evidence. And imagine that this is how these science types formulate theories the rest of us are supposed to blindly believe. You think you know me. You see the pieces I spoon feed you. You say you understand. But you have no idea.
Doesn't you know that David Hume? He said that there's no such thing as a scientific theory because we can't tell if anything's going to happen all the time. Yeah, but that was like poo-pooed by Immanuel Kant. Well, see, like I told you, you need to learn more German philosophers before you just jump into stuff. Jeez, Janet, will you tell the bird to read more German philosophers?
It's always valuable to read as many different philosophers and get as many different ideas so that you can come up with a well-rounded solution, a well-rounded theory of your own based on as much knowledge as you can get, Mr. Bird. So keep chugging at it and keep working on it, all right,
I
man?
hate having to work. Can't you just tell me? Okay, I'll tell you later. Sorry about that, Janet, but
That's
um,
quite all right.
okay,
That's quite all right.
it's been a problem ever since I left that Nietzsche YouTube thing on. So I don't know. Anyways, anything else to say for last words for our audience? Because I got another guest
um,
coming on. I have Terry Jacobus. Who's he? He's a guy. Okay.
he's a guy. Do I have time to share this last one with you?
Do the last one.
Sure. This one is titled from a book that's coming from somebody else for me. It's titled Eternal Never Ending Now. We struggle in our worlds. We contend with regular problems and we look for relief in any way we can. We think a vacation will temporarily assuage how we feel, and it does. And then it's back to the same old grind, that same never ending meaninglessness. I know it's hard. I know it seems hopeless. But I want to ask you, can you think of a moment? Can you pause and think of a time in your life, any time, when you felt at peace? It may have seemed a lifetime ago. Maybe it was at a beach at sunset, listening to the waves crash, or maybe it was sitting along a mountainside and watching the little cars driving around the little roads below, or maybe it was jumping into a vat of fresh soybeans after a farmer says to look around the farm, and all you can smell is that wheat and the dew from all the lush green around you. I won't bring up references to bubble baths or baseball games. Just think of whatever works for you and remember it. And what I want you to do is find that moment, and you may realize that time then seemed to just stand still. There was no past, there was no future. There was just an eternal, never-ending now that didn't end. During that moment, you don't even remember it ending. It was that complete. So, if you can remember those times, if you can reflect on those times, then know that the perfect moment of completeness, of wholeness, is within you. Find it and know that peace is with you always. Thank you.
Thank you. Wait, you never hear enough applause anymore.
You know, I ran the open mic and I had canned applause. I'm like, here's your canned applause. Yay, you're awesome. But it took too long to do it. So it's just everybody put up their little hand symbols.
Yeah, but that's somehow not the same as hearing it. No
Of
one ever
course.
applauds me. That's by design. You don't really exist. Oh, Descartes.
Oh,
Okay, okay.
give it up to the bird. Bird is the word. Something what?
We gotta talk. I gotta talk to the bird one of these days. Anyways, I'm kicking you off. I need to have you back to talk to you about the purpose of writing and why we write poetry and stuff like that.
I'm
Um,
always welcome and thank you very much. Just let me know. Thank you. And thank you all for listening. Thank you. Thank you.
okay. Lynn West says bravo.
Yeah, thank you.
But I'm taking you off the screen. Oh, I'm taking you off the screen, and I'm gonna break. I'm gonna break the screen. Okay, I'm gonna put you over there, and I'm going to call up our next guest, and we're gonna do this by speakerphone. So, and then I need something to put the speakerphone on, but I'm not going to because that would take up too much time. Okay, our next guest is the one, the only Terry Jacobus. Terry has a degree in education from Northwestern University, and he wound up doing a lot of teaching at Northwestern and being very involved there. He had Ed Dorn and Gwendolyn Brooks as his teachers. So I'm very glad to have him up here, and it's a really rare treat because um, Terry hasn't been out all during the pandemic. So this is Terry's first performance in a year or two, actually. So I want to give him a call and bring him up here, and I need to get him on speakerphone here. Okay. And I'm going to need to find that little magnetic thing that I put down that I can't find. Hi, this is Dave Getchick. I could hear you fine. Your secretary answered the phone, and sorry we're running a little bit late, but I hope you're enjoying the show, and I'm sure that people are going to enjoy this part of the show also. Um, we, I, Terry, I'm gonna put you on speaker. Okay. All right, now I think the world could hear you.
Oh, good. Hello, world. How you doing?
Wow,
Well, all right.
you get to talk to the world, which is really cool.
It's cool. I've got world phones.
Who's that beautiful laughter in the background?
That's Carla.
Okay, Carla Yvonne, the lead singer of Bohemia.
Mm.
Um, I think our sound is okay. Let me know if there's a problem with the sound. And
Yep. From my end, it's really good.
okay, hope you enjoyed the earlier part of the show.
I
And we
did.
got a bunch of people watching us, and I'm sure they're very excited to hear from the great Terry Jacobus.
Oh,
Terry has
none come greater.
Terry has written a couple books. There's this book, Fine, that came out a while ago, and
Yeah.
a newer book called um, Lotus and Poems. Okay, Lotus and Poems is a really unique book. It comes from a European publisher, and it has lots of artwork combining with the poetry, and you could kind of see a little bit about Terry's progression because his poems are becoming shorter and shorter as he gets older and older. His poems are getting shorter and shorter, and someday Terry's going to be doing one word poems, which is going to be really cool.
No, just a page of nothing on it.
A page with nothing on it.
And then
Okay.
you make up whatever you want. And so you get it's like poetry about nothing.
Huh. That was a hit TV show for somebody, something like that. Um, Anyways, I want to thank Jana for being on the show, and and let's hear what Terry has to say.
Well, first I want to thank you for allowing me this. I've been sort of holed up with got rid of this cancer I had. Make long story short, I got out of whatever loop I was in, and mostly the readings I was doing up to that time were not local. They were Colorado or New Mexico or something. And then the disease hit and things changed. The question to the young lady before was good. So that you asked, did becoming near death change your poetry? And I almost died from this cancer. It didn't change my poetry, but it does change your outlook. Your outlook is different when the man is knocking at your door, maybe. So it did change me, and it's still changing me because I'm still affected by it. The amputation I had really affected me. I couldn't be the athlete I was swimming, but anyway, that's just personal stuff that sort of tied me down. I did finish.
Can you turn down the music in the background a little bit?
Oh, certainly. How's that?
That's even better.
Good. So I don't know if you wanted to talk about poetry, the history of stuff, or you want me to read some poems from the Book of God, which is my new book, which I'm, going to be really on top of to get published. I think it's a good book. It took me 7 years to write it. So.
Well, the Terry Jacobus, you were born in Chicago, right?
Born and raised in Chicago, yeah.
Born and raised in Chicago, but you moved to Colorado and had adventures all over the country for a couple of years there.
Well, I didn't live it. My home base was always Chicago, but I was away a lot doing readings, mostly at universities or coffee houses when there was still that type of atmosphere. Mm-hmm. And it was, it was an active time, but I was still local.
Now you started out. You started out. You were a student of Gwendolyn Brooks and Ed Dorn. Terry, are you still with me? I guess we lost our audio feed. Let me try calling Terry back really quick. And we have an alternative number for Terry, but I'm going to have to okay, let's try to get our connection back. Terry had cancer in his leg, and that's the amputation that he mentioned was the cancerous in his leg, and he lost part of his leg. And Terry was a big athlete. Hi. I don't know what happened. What? I could hear you.
Okay, good. I don't know what happened.
We could still hear him.
And we clearly, so.
You didn't go off.
Okay. I don't know. It was just strange.
Yeah, well, that's in electricity. It's not.
So anyway, there's a poetry history I have, and there's a new book I have, and I got poems.
Now,
I could read a few poems. Is that all right?
Yeah, read a couple poems, and then we'll talk about you and your relationship with Ed Dorn and how he helped you become a poet.
Okay, thank you. The name of this is an epigram to the Book of God, and it's called Manifest Divinity. about God. We do not want to learn that. The Indians may quarrel with men about things on this earth, but we never quarrel about God. We do not want to learn that. A paraphrase of Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce tribe. This poem is called For One Day. White, hot, clean, dripping wet, playing crossroads on my acoustic, living my whole life in one night, in one light. Welcome to the spiritual jungle, something beyond sci-fi and the gift the math god brings. With every ounce of knowledge comes a ton of pain, something sweet, consistent, and evolving. Like all the good prophets humming their positive message at one urban campfire, playing on the same team in the same dream, healing everyone on earth for one day.
Are you a religious man?
I'm a man of the spirit. I studied to be a priest, but don't hold that against me. I mean, but yeah, I was up. It's weird. I have a war with God, or whatever that is. And I did study for the priesthood for 3.5 years. So, but anyway, shall I read one more short one?
Read one more.
All right. I don't know if it's too religious. I mean,
No, you're not too religious.
patience. Those who love for God and those who kill for God expect to land on the same plane as God. Dear God, even if you are nothing, hold me tight tonight. Breathe me in a womb and hold me to the light. Kiss me like the fool kisses for love. Take me the way a soul slides through the peaceful door. Lead me in a prayer headed for the open heart. When you are ready, you will see us all, one spirit at a time. It may take an eternity, but I'll be patient. It's worth the wait.
Wow. There's like a lot of reflection in there and a peacefulness of the spirit too.
Yeah, that was, there's angry ones too, but that one was a good one. I mean, there's so many different voices in this book, it's very interesting to me in a sense too.
Now,
anyway, do you want to talk about Ed and the...
I want to talk about. I'm always interested. That's why I asked about your religiosity, or let's call it.
Sure.
I'm always interested in why a poet writes and how they first started writing. When did you first start writing? It had to be before college.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's the voice. It's like when they say, "Do you hear voices?" It's like, of course I hear voices. I'm a writer. I mean, you just. That deep voice, whatever that is, they call it soul, whatever, gut, you just doodle things. And I did that, started when I was a teenager, and catapulting that with the energy that Ed Dorn brought was unbelievable as an active poet, and Gwendolyn Brooks and her power. So, it's one half dozen of the other. You just feel it.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Do you feel that poetry comes from you, or does it come to you? I know that's a strange question.
Not really. It's you can transverse dimensions, I think. Because when I'm locked into a certain voice in a certain poem, it's almost like I'm being guided.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've learned is there's more wisdom in my book. If I could practice what I write, I'd be a lot better off. Because I read this, I go, Yeah, that's good. It's intelligent, but you're not doing it. You could write it.
Yeah. I feel the same way. And it's like why did I write that? Do I believe that? Well, yeah, I do. But if I believe that, then why don't I live that? And you go around in circles, and then you just write the next piece. Um,
Yeah.
so were you like almost a scattered poet without a voice until you went to college and had some education with some really good poets?
Well, yeah, I got an example of. I mean, to be, I graduated high school in '66, so started college in '66, '7. There wasn't, that energy, that raw about poetry around for me.
Hmm.
But I got it at the university. A year, my second year in, when Ed and Jenny, his wife, sort of mysteriously landed because Ed was very aristocratic, a brilliant poet, and like I said, Jenny was her brother owned the Indica Gallery where John Lennon met Yoko Ono, and we were like 19-year-old kids hanging with these guys. I'm like, oh man, are you kidding me? And I learned from watching the way Ed would perform. He was like an aristocrat.
Hmm.
The way he gave readings, he got a very distinct voice, and he taught me how to use words
So
in terms of your voice, my voice.
in 1970 in Chicago, were there non-academic poetry events and readings going on anywhere?
Oh gosh, yeah. On Lincoln Avenue, there was. I think it was. Let's see. The Lion Club, or
The Red Lion?
yeah, the Lion. But there was Oxford Pub, and next door to that was a theater.
Uh-huh.
And that theater is where I forgot the name of the theater, but there were readings once or twice a month with poets they got. And these were mostly poets the Yellow Press people would bring in. Robert Bly was one, and but there was up and down Lincoln Avenue. There were places you could read because they were like sort of like clubs, but
Mm-hmm.
not with bands, and it was cool. I mean, there were a lot of them, and I used to write for Strong Coffee magazine, and we would go to every different coffee house.
I remember
Pardon me?
I remember seeing your work in Strong Coffee, but I remember seeing it in the 90s,
Yeah.
maybe even like 88, 80, or 89. And I think there was a big heyday of Chicago poetry venues in the early 90s, the early
Yeah,
to mid 90s.
there was. I mean, I know I read with Patricia Smith in the early 90s. She was leaving, going on, she was getting married, leaving, and her and I gave a reading for her farewell. But there were a lot of venues because of the small mom and pop shops that would throw these readings.
So in the 70s there was a lot of stuff going on in Lincoln Park from a literary standpoint.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
I mean, Roger Ebert, I'm not trying to drop names here, but when Ebert would show up at Oxford, we would have all-night battles. He was very accessible. But that street, what I'm trying to say is that street was very active.
uh-huh.
All the way past Kingston Mines on Halstead, and there were, everybody was sort of giving a reading, running a reading series or something, and you just, fit right in there, and you could relax, and you learned, and you listened, and you were young, so it was like a great schooling.
Mm-hmm.
And then having Ed as a mentor, and again, Ed is the kind of guy, he's got a poem I love called In sense of pure poetry, and it's about Elvis. How much Elvis hated Robert Goulet. And a short piece is, the guards can say what they want, and so can Vernon, and so can NBC. But whatever it is they all have to say, no one can fault the king for squeezing the trigger on Robert Goulet. That's perfect. I mean, it was his choice of language in that poem to keep it sort of medieval was at Dorn. And of course, the gunslinger. I don't know if I hope you're familiar with it, but
I read some Ed Dorn, but not a lot of it.
yeah.
Do you know the gunslinger?
Oh yeah.
How does
it's a 4-piece narrative. It's long. I mean, but I own all of his books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, some rare ones too.
No,
it was like hanging out with Carlos Castaneda and his English young wife, who was related to Marianne Faithfull. You know, it was like unbelievable to us.
And these people were side by side with you in Chicago poetry readings on Lincoln Avenue.
They're what?
They were side by side with you in poetry readings on Lincoln Avenue in Chicago.
There were. I mean, Oxford Pub was big with that theater, and then there were readings there, open readings, and then the Yellow Press had readings there. And like I said, Robert Bly, one of the most infamous readings, because he got hit with a pie when he started to read.
I heard about that.
A whipped cream pie. And I was part of the Stone Wind Poets. We were sort of like, I don't know, cocky, athletic, whatever. We're like, what the fuck? Is that part of the show? And then these people get up and start throwing confetti and blowing up firecrackers. And me and my friends look and go, they're trying to screw up this reading. So we get in a big fight. And we end up outside on Lincoln Avenue. And the police are there. And they're going, I'm going to get arrested for poetry. Because the people that were throwing all this confetti and stuff, they were surrealists. And they were angry at Bly for publishing Neruda in South America. I mean, they had some weird agenda.
Wow.
And, they were, and we were, good. We got a fight, and like I said, I almost got arrested for poetry. It's like,
defending poetry.
Yeah. Well, then Robert Bly gives a totally pretentious reading, and I'm going, I'm risking my rep for this guy. And, I never forgot that. I mean, it was just chaos, street. He did make the reading. But anyway, that was part of the scene on Lincoln Avenue. It was very active. A lot of, very, very active scene.
In the 70s. Now, somebody told me that Kim Perez, the editor of Star Wallpaper, told me that you were the first person who published her. Did you have a magazine then?
Yeah, we did. We had a few, but the one we had was Stone Wind magazine, and that came out of hanging out with, the poets that I hung out with. And most of them were from Northeastern. Actually, they all were from Northeastern. And we're sort of guided by, not guided in content, but by Ed, at watching what he's doing. And it's like, I never saw a poet read like that in my life, the way he would read it. And, so, yeah, it was a sharing of his mentorship with the street.
When did you start wandering out to California and wandering out to Colorado and mixing with all the beat poets and Gregory Corso stuff? When did that happen?
That was in the mid-'70s, but then I was in California, and then went into Mexico and traveled all through Mexico during like the 70s when it was cool.
Mm-hmm.
And you could get on second-class buses and sit next to each iguanas and everything like that. But it was just rich. It's like I said, it was like target rich with people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really think that adventuring is an important part of being a good writer.
Oh, definitely.
And
Yeah.
and that just you need times in your life, even now, you need times in your life where you have to go out and adventure and experience. And one of the problems with a lot of people is that they go out and they have all this experiences, but they don't have the ability to change that into literature.
Right.
And you had the ability to change that into literature. I don't know if that could be taught, or it needs to be it could be it needs to be something inborn. Do you need to be inborn? Do you need to have poetry inborn in you, or can you teach somebody to be a good
Well, I'm a
poet?
guitar player too, so I always was doing something, but I never got into poetry like this. I mean, it was like the Krell mind boost from Forbidden Planet.
Mm-hmm.
You just went like, whoa, this is beyond, and then you'd strive to do as good as what they were showing you. Paul Carroll, I don't know if you knew Paul, he was around then at Circle, and he was a character. Michael Anania, another one. I mean, there were just people everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they were opening up and willing to share, and sounds like a cliche, but that was the truth.
So there was a little bit of rivalry between the Carroll people and the Northside people. I remember
Yeah.
hearing about that.
Big time between us, the Stoneman poets in Northeastern, and the Yellow Press and the Circle poets. We used to call them the Circle poets. And it was just different. And people are competitive. And when you're younger, you're more competitive. And people say, I remember when I won that thing in Taos, it's like, hey, don't take it so seriously. It's only poetry, Peter Rabbit, the guy who ran it, says. I'm like, Peter, when you're up there competing with somebody, and this is throwing it into the boxing area again, which isn't always the best, but it is serious. You're reading your poetry against another person's poetry. That's what the venue set up. That was so it is, because you don't want to look like a goof or get blown away or any of that stuff. So it's like anything else, it really, and that's how actually all that bout stuff started, because we kept seeing poets that were so competitive that they got in fights. And Jim Desmond and Jerome Saul got into a big fight at the Captain Jammer Lounge, and that was where Al and I thought of poetry bouts.
So if you went and made somebody the heavyweight champion of poetry, then they have some kind of energy to put their competitive nature towards.
Correct.
Okay. So
and what they did, though, we went national. I got a letter from a guy who says, we want to do these bouts.
What year was that?
1981.
So in 1981, you
81,
started.
82, because we ran 3 bouts in 81.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a reporter for Dorn's literary magazine, and I wrote about it. This was a Jerome Saul fight. I don't know who he was, one of the first ones. Wrote about it. This guy in New Mexico subscribed to Ed's magazine, and he read the article, and he goes, we're going to do this in Taos, man. And he wrote me, he says, even if you aren't going to let us use your format, we're going to use it anyway. And I got a kick out of it, and it was Taos, and it's like, okay, we'll go national, and they picked Gregory Corso, who called himself Captain Poetry. They picked him as the champion.
So they just randomly picked him as the champion.
Well, because number one, you get good crowds if you hit back then, or now if you had the beatniks, because Allen Ginsberg was the something. There was a Kerouac fest that year in Boulder. So all these people came to Taos. And, Gregory was the one who was sort of the bad boy of the group. And he was a bad boy during our bout. Kept interrupting me and stuff. But I don't know how I meandered off into all that. But
So you were one of the people that came up with the original idea, but you
Right.
weren't one of the organizers, and you went there.
Well, I didn't order Al Simmons. I was one of the people that was a participant in the play.
Uh-huh.
I was at the beginning, just like a color announcer, and just an idea guy. I mean, I was part of the ideas that went into that. Not that it took a genius to go, we'll have 3 judges and we'll use the Olympic system and blah, blah, blah. So it was sort of evolved architecturally.
Paint the scene for me. Who was there? What was happening? I mean, was this like a throwback to the '60s?
No,
Beatnik
this
kind
was
of
a
thing?
regular bout where people were sitting here. We had a ring, and people got crazy. I mean, I never saw it. It was just like it was catchy. Because there was competition on stage, and it was very intense. And in the audience, everybody was drinking and listening, and it was like being at a real bout.
Okay, so it wasn't a free love kind of thing where, oh, we're lovely poets that we're reading. It was.
You could read lovely poems, and you could be lovely, but the atmosphere itself was very, very intense in terms of the competition.
Who was there?
Oh, let's see. I don't know if you would remember. Did you know? Well, you know Al Simmons, right?
I've heard of Al Simmons.
Okay. Henry Tanabas, Ted Berrigan.
Uh-huh.
Ted loved that stuff. I'm trying to think of people that were around. There's like a whole new generation of Chicago poets.
There was some actors there too. I mean, out in New Mexico. There was also a decent amount of Hollywood types out there too during the poetry bouts.
Oh yeah, well because what's her head?
I can't think of her either.
She was with Richard Gere. She played a prostitute. Julia Roberts.
Julia Roberts.
She has a place there, and people would be there. You would run into everybody. I've got so many stories. Getting drunk with Christopher Walken, giving a reading. We went to a Julia Roberts party prior to the reading, and they're giving me matzahs with stuff on it. I looked, I thought, all right. And Peter Rabbit, the guy with the brand, is like, Terry, that's hash butter. And I just came from Chicago, and I flew. Now I'm in the mountains, my first hour, and I'm stoned on hash butter. I mean, beyond belief. And I went up to Eric Roberts and said, what's wrong with you? You made such great movies, man. You're making all these, you did Hope Greenwich. Anyway, there are Hollywood people there. Not that it mattered, but they were there. And they were accessible to the poetry.
And during the competition, you beat Gregory Corso.
Correct.
And you became the world heavyweight champion of poetry. What did they call it?
They call it the World Heavyweight Poetry Championship, and I became the first. I put it into spoken word, but it basically was. There was no specific. I was like the World Heavyweight Poetry Champion.
Uh-huh.
And they just kept that.
In 1980.
1982.
But they kept
the
on.
Kerouac Fest was in Boulder,
Uh-huh.
and in August of '82 was the first poetry circus bout, and whole circus would transfer.
But they kept on doing it every year after that, right?
Oh God, yeah. It went from 1992, no, 1982, the first one, up
Mhm.
until 2004. And then
Wow.
people just got too old, and they didn't turn it over to the right people.
Mm-hmm. So
They had 22 years of poets, and I'm talking about, name them,
we just got a request for you to read another poem.
Oh, that's great.
So let's make the audience happy.
All right.
This is Lynn, who I don't think you ever met. Lynn. Lynn West said, "Please read again."
Okay, lovely. The death of the living. The death of the living can at times hurt worse than the death of the dead. I write this for the sake of all hope, holding on to faith, holding on to love, holding on to you when I must let go.
Wow. Is that a new one or is that an older one?
Oh, that's part of the Book of God.
Okay.
There's a lot of them like that. I mean, I think they sort of, one thing I used to teach when I would teach is something called the impenetrable line. You write a line at a poem you start, and you have to follow that line with a line just as good as that one to keep going. And it took a lot of training, but then you stay within your voice, and you usually can produce something. Anyway.
So that's a good technique.
Yeah, you got to work your butt off at it, but I'm trying to find your. All right.
There's a YouTube channel for Terry Jacobus, and there's some of his poetry on there. Lots of his poetry on there, and Terry also has a Facebook page called the Jacobians.
If people want to join or read a lot of this work on Facebook, because I don't care, I put it on there. It's under Terrence Jacobus, Terrance, and there's a lot of poems there. There are a lot of sort of esoteric. I mean, I got drawn on there. I got readings that I gave, but it's mostly poems and smart remarks.
Or not so smart remarks.
Or not so smart remarks, But please, if you go there, check it out. Here's another poem from the Book of God. The Dream Factory. Racing. Hello?
I am still here.
The Dream Factory. Racing down galactic rapids faster than the speed of light, waving to an infinite crowd that doesn't breathe. A universal union on perpetual watch of the great secret everyone comes to know. Posting endless cards, making sure the Dream Factory doesn't close and the assembly line of angels isn't fired. I'm going to try to find it's a true story. If I can find it here, I apologize for that. So they just have them in order, but
That's okay. I'm looking through your books for your picture.
I know I'm going to end up with pictures. I've been trying to get my updated pictures on Facebook, and I've been locked in this assisted living for over a year. It's bizarre.
Well, you were pretty hot when you were younger. So.
I'm still hot.
Okay.
Still got my hair. I'm looking good, David. I really wanted to bloom.
Well, no, we'll get you on Zoom soon. I mean, I'll get you back.
I'm lonely. I live off Don Rickles and classical music. That's what I live on. Don Rickles, old shows on Tonight Show, and classical music.
Okay. Actually, my phone is starting to run out of juice, which is weird.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
So when you called earlier, I might not have put it back down in the cradle properly. Um, you know the poem I really like by you.
You know?
Can you read that for me?
You mean Edgar Allan Poe?
Yes, I'll promise I'll applaud.
You don't have to applaud. The hard thing about that poem is doing it from memory, but here goes.
Okay.
So Edgar Allan Poe's in his car going the wrong way on Old 6, and it's snowing hard, and he's pissed off and worried about everything. So he pulls over to the side of the highway, and his woman jumps out of the car, and she sees Edgar isn't getting out, so she goes to one of them phone stands near a big pole by the wrong way sign and calls up his good friend, Sam Coleridge. Well, Sam gets there in pretty good time, and he sees Edgar in the car with his face locked hard and sort of mean. So Sam starts banging on the window saying, "Come on, man, get it together. You've got a good woman and a lot going for you. Plus, I'm interested enough to come all the way down here and get you." Oh, just turned his head real slow and stiff-like, and he glared right at Coleridge between the glass of his head. And I've got a fucking raven in the backseat of this car, and he never leaves wherever I am. And I'm sick of all this shit and having to write it down because that's all I can do with it. Well, Coleridge is stunned for a minute. Then he starts ranting and raving and running in circles around Poe's car real fast, then real slow, then real fast again. And he's biting his arms and slapping his lips until he flings himself on Edgar's windshield and says, "You asshole. You're so worried about that damn raven. Well, take a look at this thing." And there about Sam's neck hung an 80-pound albatross, like a huge, noxious pendant. And Poe looked at it close and saw it was real. So he unhooked the sedan, got out of the car, and Poe's woman straightened her dress, thinking how glad she knew it was over for this time.
For the people hiding
So I
in
did
the.
as good as I could, a little bit of, but it's a long one to. So before your batteries are out, shoot, I got a bunch of like one-liners. I don't know if you want that or you want to
Give us a bunch of poetry. The audience is asking for more poetry.
Homeboy. I got to know a little bit about the movies, but Homeboy. So why did you choose to be born in Chicago? I chose Chicago for the desert. But there is no desert in Chicago. I was misinformed. And that's from Mr. Rick in Casablanca when Claude Rains asks him if he's there for the waters. Sometimes in eternity, when nobody's listening, we ask God to hear what's being said.
Now, Terry's also shopping for a publisher for this new book, too, in case anybody's interested.
Cybercola. Even when I'm dead, I will write poems, crossing the beginning and the end of the finish line, with a generous in distance and time. Show me you are real, and I will show you how to walk in the magic. Ours is a sequence, connected in trance. We are walking universes, star herders, endless and ever-changing. Meet me at the corner of the next dimension. Cross at the light of the next generation. Lend me your soul, and I'll buy you a Coke.
Wow. There's a humor that always comes in there.
Well, you gotta keep the peoples entertained, you know.
I'd like to buy God a Coke.
Death can be funny that way. I had died. I was floating inside a Beethoven symphony like a placid comet. I thought, my God, I want to stay here. I made it. As soon as I said that, I was back. Why am I back? I hazily asked the powers that be. Because you wanted to stay, they replied. Death can be funny that way. Yeah.
We probably have about 3 minutes more left, maybe a little
Okay.
bit more.
I'm trying to find the shortest
The
words. Heart.
and like I said, Terry hardly ever gets to perform in Chicago.
Well, that's what I wanted. Yeah, I'd like to start performing again.
And he's just on the edge of learning Zoom. So if anybody wants to get a Terry Jacobus Zoom reading,
Too much Don Rickles.
but what will
I'm sorry, dude.
but we could get, if anybody wants to have Terry, let him know via Facebook.
Yeah, I'll read. I got a wheelchair, but I'll read. On the other side, we'll close it out with this, I guess.
Okay.
Some smell sweet in life. Some smell sweet in death. When she found the dead bird on the couch,
Dead bird. Oh, bird, it's okay.
didn't smell it all. In the beginning or the end, it's all the same triangle of logic and emotion. A frozen experience clinging to a window of fire. Like a power ballad just waiting to go off. We are all as fragile as the next breath we take. As certain as a nervous starling wandering free in a 3-cat house.
Wow. So right now you only have 2 books.
No,
2 published
well,
books.
I have 4 books. So I have Fine. Then I had Souvenir, which is short stories. Made that into a CD. That's gone. And there's the Lotus and Poems book and the Book of God. So it was like those books.
So, but right now, the easiest way for anybody to see any Terry Jacobus work, Jacobus, is to go to the YouTube channel and listen to it.
Yeah, if you just put my name in, if you want. I mean, in the search engine on YouTube, Terry Jacobus videos will come up. Or if you want, go on Facebook. There's a whole mess of stuff on there. Almost 50 poems. So if any of you want to get in touch with me that way, please do so.
Well, somebody just posted on the Facebook feed, "Can you read in Highland Park?" And yeah, if you could set it up later, contact Terry, and he could probably read in Highland Park, right?
Oh gosh, yeah.
It's not that far away. And you do get out of there sometimes.
Yeah, Carla carts me around and helps me out quite a bit.
Okay. Well, I'm going to kick you off, but I'm probably going to get you on next month.
Okay.
So we could talk a little bit more about poetry, because we got a lot to talk about still.
Yeah, there's a whole thing. It's sort of, and I'll Zoom by then, I hope. Anyway, David.
You'll know Zoom. You will know Zoom by the end of the week.
Okay. And I appreciate you letting me read. It does my soul good, and I hope I reached a few people out there.
Oh, you got a good response.
Good.
All
right, my friend.
Okay, I will talk to you later.
Be good.
Bye-bye. What the problem is I need a new speakerphone. That's what the big problem is. I guess that over time the batteries go away, and it doesn't work quite right. But anyways, I wanted to read my friend Bob Trombello's poetry tonight. Bob was a poet, a Chicago juggernaut, really. Bob was had some training at the Art Institute. He was a great artist. He was a great car mechanic. He had all kind of ventures on the punk scene in Chicago. He was a bouncer at the Exit. He was a roadie for the Bone Men of Barumba when they had their national tour going across the country. And Bob was a huge sci-fi fan. Him and I used to go to sci-fi conventions all the time. WindyCon, Capricon, DuckCon. And Bob was also a party monster at the conventions too. So Bob was, like I said, a juggernaut and touched the lives of so many people. And just when there was a problem with somebody's life, Bob was always there to help. He was like a steamroller, getting the problems out of the way. If I had a problem, Bob was one of the first people I would talk to because he could do things overcoming hell and high water, sometimes even scarily, get things done. And Bob had three stepkids. Yes, Bob was one of a kind, and I miss him. And I first met him when he was after he had worked at a movie theater. I was an usher at the movie theater, and Bob would show up with these fantastic cars, and everybody would like run out and see this guy with a mohawk who was driving around an English cabbie or something like that. And Bob was a mechanical genius like that, and he later on used that genius to be able to build really nice computers for people. But Bob often would lose the momentum in his life too, and wander. And Bob's wandering was part of his life and his adventuring. And he adventured for a while into Dave Rubin's readings at Cafe Aloha, and and so he wandered into Dave Rubin's readings at Cafe Aloha one day, and he pulled out some poetry. He had always gone to poetry readings with me and just get a big kick out of stuff. He used to tell me how the Bowman and Barumba had a place that they called the Barumbian Embassy, which was right around the corner from the Get Me High Lounge. So Bob used to go to the Get Me High Lounge and just to pick up food or drinks or whatever. And he used to just see this wild guy called Mark Smith up on the stage doing this weird thing called performance poetry. And I don't think Bob even knew that one day he would be up there doing the performance poetry. And then we hung out at the Green Mill and Weeds, and Bob never would read his poetry. And Bob died a year and a day ago in a car accident down in Florida. So he's missed by a lot of people, and it was kind of a shock when Bob, who had gone to Florida to kind of restart his life and get his life back together, was suddenly taken away. That one day it's Bob's no longer with us. I went down there and searched through Bob's possessions, and was able to find his poetry. And there's one thing I regret though is a short story that Bob had. Bob had a short story that was kind of inspired by Fritz Lieber, who he had a correspondence with Fritz Lieber. And Stuart David Schiff was another sci-fi writer that he had a good correspondence with. And at the time, Bob would do like these huge giant things to cars. And what he did is he took his International Harvester truck and took the body off of it to fix the body. So he had the body suspended over the chassis and started getting tickets for not having his emission test done. And Bob used that real life experience to write a short story about a guy who had an oppressive government that was chasing after him. And what the oppressive government would do is they would dig under the ground and come up to try to get this guy's illegal flying machine. He didn't have a license for his flying machine, and he would know that the government was coming to get him when he would feel the earth shake, and he'd jump in his flying machine and take off to another place he could hide out until the government would follow him and track him and try to get him with their digging machine. He's inspired by Blaylock's Digging Leviathan's book, and a lot of Fritz Lieber stuff. And I wish I had that story, but I don't. Now that I got everybody excited, but I have some of Bob's poetry, and hopefully I have enough light to read it without turning on all the lights in this room. But I want to read some poetry by Bob Trimballo, who died a week and a day ago, and I hope everybody enjoys it, and I hope that um, that the people that Bob touched could hear this also. This is called Renewal Uncertain. I heard him read this at the Cafe Aloha. I think it was one of the first poems that he actually read in public. Renewal Uncertain. I went to renew my driver's license the other day. Good old Secretary of State. You could smell the old people that worked there and observe your life moving in time with theirs. Almost hear the ticks of the clock on the wall as the passing of time becomes just so many people staring at one another. I bought my old expired license with me and countless pieces of mail, affixed with current address, of course, even my original Social Security card, rarely ready to do battle with the state-empowered bitter oldsters, equipped with my best attitude. As I moved through the line, I wanted to pick out certain women. I started to pick out certain women. The cheap girl in the felt dress and loose blouse. Let's see what this does to our feed. Um, in the loose blouse, and also some especially odd-looking characters. The gangly Canuck with his daughter. I made I made gauge mental notes of hidden sexuality. The blonde in disarray with the tight jeans. Marked down particulars on sinister looking types. The greasy long haired Hispanic in the leather jacket. Started summarizing the lives of others around me. I was working my way to the perimeter of the cattle fence, and I noticed a little old man. His shoulders were hunched downward, as his shrunken body, uh, into his shrunken body, and he had shuffled kind of lifelessly as he made his way towards the little old woman. He looked at the floor, and she looked at him, and said in a weak voice, "I didn't make it." I couldn't make out what she said, but she focused on his fuss with his shirt collar while he flapped his arms feebly and said in a small voice, "What are we going to do now?" The pair shuffled over to the seated area and sat with their backs to my view, both of their heads bowed down. "I didn't make it," rang through my head. "I didn't make it," burned at my fingertips. "I didn't make it," echoed over and over again deep in my psyche. We judge one another all through life. Others judge us all our lives. And we end up sitting like so many crows on a fence, waiting for life's curtains to fall. And where do we go? Where do we go when the show's over? What happens when the music stops playing? Who plays with us when the toys are put away? Who's going to care? Suddenly, I noticed the line had moved about 10 feet past me, and everyone was looking at me, doing my best to look nonchalant. I shuffled forward, mooing softly to myself. I looked back over to where the oldsters were, or rather had been. They were now just a memory of one of life's mirages, just a trick of the light perhaps. But something was left behind, maybe just a thought, or soon to be a memory, but nevertheless, the judges are someday judged. My attention once more attracted, the cheap girl with the loose blouse stepped away from the counter. The Canuck with the fat daughter were next. I lost track of the Hispanic. Damn, it's getting late. And it is getting late, and I want to apologize for such a long show, but I I miss Bob. This is called Sandcastles in the Rush Tide by Bob Trombello. There is a log jam in the head where something gray is supposed to be. An invisible log jam, made of nothing, over something, which means everything. When faced with an emotional twinge of life, the inner child doesn't spring out. He's been standing there patiently waiting for showtime, for another performance. Let's take, for example, the young lady. The man has a good time with the young lady, at times sometimes categorized as if one were a librarian or a clerk, as maybe as good as life has to offer. And that time is extrapolated upon and used to calculate a future time that has yet to happen. The making of life a game, an act of self composed rules, expectations on imaginary events, sandcastles in the rush tide. But the electrons are not fixed in the outer shell, and there are an infinite number of possibilities to life, and the best played plans of mice and men. And in the end, if the inner child is teachable and willing, there is a realization that is made that the only rule to life is that there are no rules except the self imposed rules that we live our life by. Our lives, our lives are really nothing more than sandcastles in the rush tide. Sandcastles in the Rush Tide by Bob Trombello. This is called Unnecessarily Gone by Bob Trombello. And there's a date on here. And Bob would put his date really small on his poetry. And it's like in size 3 font. And it says 9/3/99 by RWT, which from my calculations is over 20 years ago. It's called Unnecessarily Gone. One little boy is gone, or should I say, a young man, one of our youth, the promise of tomorrow removed in a second by the necessity to forget life, by the want to not to feel. This young man, this remarkable young man, his name was Alan. He was my friend. All his hopes and dreams eclipsed by the despair that no one would understand, that no one could help him. His life, his problems, his pain, too much for him. He was overpowered by the enemy, a disease within some of us ourselves. It's with sorrow I ponder what Alan could have been. It's with pride that I reflect Alan was my friend. I will never again see his wry smile shadowed under his hat, or listen to his observations on life of what is fair and unjust, his willingness to always help another. See him in a companionship with this girl friend, perhaps for the first time in his young life, watch his hand movements aligned with his rhetoric, glimpsing rising moments of happiness. With Alan's passing, he has given us a gift of his short life and the remembrance never pick a permanent solution. It's a temper to a temporary problem. Reach out for help and have faith, hope, and faith. Goodbye, Alan, my friend. Bob and I raised crosses over a lot of fallen friends, and a lot of fallen poets too. Frank Bonomo. Bob was with me the night that Frank Bonomo died. Um, Bob always with me the night after Frank Bonomo died in a drive-by shooting. He was with me. He went to Effie Mahapolis's funeral with me. And he was a friend of many poets, and you know, he was missed um, because he went away and dropped out after a while. This is called Complications. Witnessing much of life, standing toreador in the traffic lanes, insane fights with monolithic bulls. Symbology is lost for angst. Defying gypsy thoughts the rites of passage to stand like a rock in the river of time, trampling thorny rose beds with lethal steel soles, while marching to an unhummable tune, brushing aside the normality of the new day, dancing to the shattered, battered moon, witnessing the shadows of yesterday, too often mingled in today, perched at the doorway of tomorrow, silence is not golden. Making a noise, to be not shaped like a weapon, is fishing for kinder words in a sea long dead, with a pole crafted from a lifeboat. Breath is for the taking. Liberty is for the expulsion of a wind long used up. And this was 11/17/98 in his size 3 font. Bob was a big supporter of punk rock in the early days of Chicago. He wrote this in 10/6/2002. I've never read it in public before. I haven't read most of this in public before. And I'm not super familiar with this, but let's give it a try. It's called Punk Thing. So people always ask me about this punk thing, all mesmerized about nostalgia, all its glory. For those that didn't live in that time, who viewed the circus of pictures, for those who have read glamorous accounts in numerous books, watched the clips on MTV. So here's to all of those. I stick my finger up my nose. Seems we always want to live the time that our lives were preceded by, and so many people ask me about this punk thing, to which I usually give the standard oblique accounts, make the necessary omissions, never speaking of the feeling. When you do things, when you are things, when you go through things, you feel there was feeling. You feel there is feeling. Well, I can tell you, I was 21. The year was 1979. Sure, I hated disco. So I never saw the Pistols. And I didn't decide it would be just nice to have an anarchy. I didn't even know what anarchy was. England was a spot somewhere in the middle of a cold puddle of group of people who thought they won a war. I didn't hear some song on the radio, run out mesmerized, nothing like that. I was just scared. Running scared. Life just wasn't working out for me. No matter where I ended up, I just never seemed to fit. I was struggling to be at that time, me, whoever I was, and not all alone. I had a messed up parent-family life, messed up relationships, messed up schooling, messed up jobs. Everything was messed up. Messy, messed up mess. I was messed up. I was tired. I hurt. And my life was begging to just find some place I could belong. So my life just kinda happened. I kept hearing about where the really weird people go. Rumors. And all my life I kept hearing I was weird. Receiving little signals that I didn't belong. They put my desk in the coat room in 2nd and 3rd grade, man. I never liked to talk about that. They told me repeatedly to shut up. Don't be asking questions about the world. It's not going to be heard or tolerated. Many little messages I received of leave and go away. And so, when enough strange people in America started doing things, I went looking for them. Yeah, I lost all my previous friends. They said I had gone crazy. I found those places where the especially supposedly weird people go. Dark, desperate streets strewn with broken glass, parking meters cut in half, places that had left the rest of the world behind after dark. I discovered a wonderful world of near abandoned buildings with sparse neon lights hidden from society. I didn't know where the weird people were, never seemed ever to find them. But I found brilliant conversation, sincere camaraderie, warm, loving women, real people, a regular convention of the tossed away unwanted toys. And whoever was there never judged me. Original thought was promoted. No matter how insane or arcane, I could practice my angriness, demonstrate my views of oppression, and oh yeah, there was music. I remember the music made me feel very angry in a really wonderful way. I could absolutely dance this anger out, act it out without knowing a single fashionable move or step. Jump it up and down and out of me, smash it to bits and collisions. All the different associations I could have and did. Our simple calling card was just a look in fashion, of no fashion, and most of society would reject and abhor, a uniqueness of its own, so others like us could find us, like a beacon of life in this fog-like world. So out of this was born a tribe-like existence, just the methods of survival, because everybody does need somebody, do. So, people always ask me about this punk thing. I guess they'll just have to watch the movie. Because me, I don't know. At least, not much anything anyone is going to want to hear. I can just tell you, something happened. Something to replace the boredom. The replacement to the stagnant rock and roll world, leaving the leisure suits behind and the disco dollies, preparing us for Reaganism, communism, George and Bill and George. So think for yourself. You are all you got. And original thought. That was by Bob Trombello. A year and a day after he died, and it's called The Punk Thing, was written from 1972. Thanks, Bob, for The Punk Thing. And thanks for teaching me something about the punk thing. Anyone see The Bridge by Bob Trombello? Oh, there's another date on this one. 3/26/02. So I guess that was 2002, not 1902. Anyone see The Bridge? Mumbling some obscenities, I walked the unfortunate walk of a United States citizen, gone old before my time. Oh, wicked accelerant! Polygated propellant of addicted pursuits run out like a failed car on its last lap on a motor speedway. Crowd jeering. Buddy, can you spare a gallon of gas? Zoom. Everyone gone by. Degreeless equals now jobless. Degreeless equals now jobless. 44 a T equals no authority. Body ravaged by my own chemical surgeries. The alphabet people. The DHA sings me a tale. You, hey you man, sing a white middle-aged male. Fuck, hey you. No provision for you. Get a job or leave the country. Renounce your citizenship. Take up another citizenship. Come back here then, and then we'll help you. Hell, we'll even give you money to start a business. Social Security, the SS. Another coded name for Schultz Staffel. People who did bad things to Jews. People doing bad things, no provisions for you. Not your fault you couldn't get out of the way of a bad relationship that resulted in the end statement rebutted by a car. I've never met the DCFS for being kind. I've even met the DCFS for being kind to a young girl, listening to her problems, giving advice. The DCFS. Ah, the DCFS. Bring you imaginary misery. Social services bring and deliver to you cold life. I collect medical institution invoices like some collect trading cards, tallies of my one ownness and conquest, proving I am worth something. Shall I put them on my resume? I now party and fix up with Michael J. Fox. Remember him? Skid and Mojo told us there is no Elvis in MJF. There is no Elvis in everything in the universe. There is no Elvis in everything. I remember the late night parties, hunched down around the garbage dumpster under the L tracks in back of Estelle's, reciting poetry through sections of radio antenna with choir boy microphone element puffing the puff of expended life. Man, I blew some crazy clouded notes that circled my neck and choked the life out of me. Life. Life. Choose life. Choose a job. Choose a career. Choose a family. Choose an effing big television. Choose washing machines, cars, compact disc players, and electrical tin openers, and wondering who you are on a Sunday morning. Choose sitting on that couch, watching mind-numbing, spirit-crushing game shows, stuffing junk food into your mouth. Choose rotting away at the end of it all, pushing your last in a miserable home, nothing more than an embarrassment to the selfish, messed up brats you spawn to replace yourself. Choose your future. Choose life. Life. But why would I want to do a thing like that? The job, the family, the effing big television, the washing machine, the car, the compact disc, the electrical tin opener, good health, low cholesterol, dental insurance, mortgage, starter home, leisure wear, luggage, three-piece suit, game show, junk food, children, walks in the park, 9 to 5, 9 to 5, 9 to 5. Pause. It says pause. Good at golf, washing the car, choice of sweaters, family Christmas, index pension, tax exemption, clearing the gutters, getting by, looking ahead to the day you die. Vertical, elemental vertigo seizes the day, throttles the night. It's long past the time of doing the twist. It's all been beaten out of me. As a matter of fact, I've been beating it out of me. The devil's gone, he's moved on, he hasn't taken any prisoners. So, do I remember the crosses? Hell, I set fire to most of them in Santa Rosa, New Mexico. 9/26/02. I got a poem that Bob liked called Remember the Crosses, and I see a reflection in Bob's poetry of a lot of poets from Chicago, a lot of their poems. I see Bob reflecting them. Me, JJ, Frank Bonomo. He was involved with all of us. This is called Reemerging in Life's Highway. I'm watching a major traffic jam occur as people maneuver towards life's off-ramp, pushing, shoving, and groping. They travel, moving slower and slower towards safety. There shouldn't be any vacancies this weekend at Camp Life. I'm moving towards the on-ramp. I'm scared, and I'm happy. There is very little traffic. All the highway is moving too fast. It doesn't look like traffic is slowing or even cares about giving me a break. I should know where I'm going because I'll arrive to where I've been, and I should be able to give it a good try. See, I've just been tuned up. A lot of old parts have been revised and upgraded. Head emissions had been reduced. The computer had been updated. I even got a special set of tools on board. And if I can't do it this time, it'll be because I didn't try. Crippled sanity under rocks in very hard places. Some small measure of disbelief crosses my twisted thoughts when I view society and try to figure out the why of the ways. Watching now, I spy the futility of the dervishes, whirling around in their endless, loveless pattern of madness, so embraced in life as to be in constant battle with oneself. One constant motion now sees confusion. Slowly I have worn out false ambition, self-alienated tattoo, nation of one, tracks tread across the nation, so much self-enforcement, importance in certain social circles. Look at me, see me, notice me. A cry, help me, won't somebody help me? Can't someone see I'm sensitive and confused? Brother, can you spare an original fucking thought? I've always wanted to see, to itch at the unscratchable, to blank out in the black rain of self-piteous thoughts, shouting out as to insult the darkness for never casting light. I'm worn finally to the point of sensibility, looking for clues in the downtrodden streets and alleyways. The toys are all nearly stacked once again in the attic. By not speaking, do I hear? By not straining to get a view, can I see? I'll sit to the side as so no one trips over me. Only, only by staying very still can I pick out, can I gain subtle insult to who I want to trip into my life. I got a bunch of work by Bob, and since I think Bob deserves a role, I'm going to be right back. Bird, entertain the audience.
Entertain the audience? What the hell am I supposed to say? Hey, you know this guy? He sounds like a nice guy, but I never knew him, so I can't say anything.
Okay, Bird, get off the screen, okay? No, get totally off the screen, okay? Hi. I pulled out Moribaugh's poetry, and I'm going to read Moribaugh's poetry. Random. I picked this kind of randomly. Let me adjust my microphone for more Bob Trombello. Bob Trombello was a Chicagoan. He was born in Maywood. And Bob and I met at a movie theater when I was a youngster and he was a youngster. He was the older guy that would show up at the movie theater and try to impress everybody there. And we had a lot of friends in common at that time, but I really didn't know Bob until one crazy night where I was going to see a musical act, and Bob said, "Wow, you like that?" And I got in the car. Bob got in my car. We were driving to see that guy, and I put in the tape for Repo Man, and Bob's face lit up. He goes, "You like this music?" And I said, "Well, yeah, kind of, sort of." Okay, I gotta get you this. And he got me the White Album from England with all the punk rockers on it. And that's at that day, I think me and Bob became friends. This is Something for Your Handbasket by Bob Trombello. It's undated, so I don't need to pull out the magnifying glass. I don't know who slipped the heroin in my beer. I must have been in the washroom. Things tend to happen when you're not looking closely. I'll deny ever having purchased that automatic weapon. You can't find it on me, can you? Strange things keep happening to me. It just got all too weird. I mean, the older looking blonde girl crawling out of the dumpster seemed to be getting in my car. I don't know her, never did. Just take your eyes off the road for few seconds and you get lost. That prize flower bed in Memphis, those damned pink and white little petals, I mean, they just got in the way of my angry flight path. Something always seems to keep getting in my way. The guy that got up on stage, he wasn't supposed to have ever been there. It's supposed to be my fault when I pushed him. He fell and broke his neck. For every action, I guess, you seem to get a reaction. I'm used to living nowhere, but I'm not used to being run out of somewhere. I mean, as long as it's my idea, it's all right. Right? I don't seem to remember hearing the words, "Please get out of here," before. They want me to believe I had something to do with my computer making $160 worth of calls while I was out of town. Man, it's funny how something simple could go terribly wrong. My life's not my fault. It can't be. I mean, I believe in God and He calls all the shots. It's all preordained. Why take responsibility for my actions when I can blame someone? Relationships. It seemed I used to have sex. I mean, I must have, but I can't seem to quite remember the feeling. Why can't I seem to maintain a relationship? You know, people talk about hell, but I get the feeling I've been there. I think I've had more friends tell me to go away than most people will ever meet. I seem to remember some even talking about actions and consequences. You people here don't really know me, do you? Who am I? What things have I done and seen? Who am I today? If you find out, let me know the next time you'll see me. I'm sorry, Bob. We're not going to see you again. Okay. Let's do some more Bob. Life's Strange Dance. I spied her perchance during life's strange dance, or maybe she spied me. 'Twas a common woof under my sad roof, and the invite of the sea. We talked an hour of life's most dour, of things that will never be. I parted too soon from that brigadoon, evasive company. For an important date, I arrived too late, always my destiny. Life won't stay still till you've had your fill, and nothing ever comes free. So you take a chance on life's strange dance, and you never hold the key. That was Bob Trumbello. Life anew. Man, the machinery has finally broken down. The rending of the metal, twisting, snapping of rivets and bolts, case shearing in two and guts spilling out all over. This whole defensive unit, driven to the ground in ruin, lays there smoky and twisted. The plate armor, once so impervious, now porous. The battle guns now forever silenced. The empty, lifeless hulk of battles gone by. The indefatigable machine felled by its own mechanisms. Its metal shards, it's been a long night, cast in its heart. It's lying there dying. At least it thinks it is. It could no longer move, lays there paralyzed and vulnerable, but it can't now feel. Maybe these wrecked pieces can be reworked to form something new, something that is kinder, something that is helpful, something that has a purpose, something that likes itself. That was from 1998. And I think that we'll do. Um, I think that we're gonna do two more Bobs and then call it a night. Um, and I have Bob's copies of Bob's original, you know, things that he typed out. Um, I have Bob's, one of Bob's black jackets. Um, and this, no, we won't do that poem. It's called One Wild Summer. No, we're not going to read that one. Wow. Um, wow, Bob, it's a wondrous sex, vaginas. She orgasm lasting 2 minutes. Let's see. Tried her sister's waterbed. Let's see. Did victory at sea. Rode horses bareback and in. Okay, no, we're gonna skip that one. I mean, maybe we'll put it in his collected works, but I don't know if I want to. Um, so, okay, how about this one? Um, let's read ahead a little bit. Gin Mill, the girl with nipples, fabric, belly, low jeans. Okay, maybe I could read this one. It's called Gin Mill. The girl was brunette, compact, petite, with 60s Detroit sleek quarter panels, built more for speed. Sweater covered nipples, teasing the woven fabric. Fat, creamy, smooth belly exposed her hiked up top and low jeans. Her delicate yet guided hand balanced her equation. Smoothing, clutching, grabbing, groping, never ceasing movement. Over and over she attacked the small of my back, kneading out the spine to the tailbone, never giving a thought to the spying crowd around her. Her dark eyes penetrated holes through my soul, delicious tongue flicking sensuously as she mouthed unspoken words, blanketed by her sounds. Her mission was arousal. She was relentless. Her mind made up, fueled by drink and passion, on her way to accomplishing her objective. I thought to myself, damn, what a lucky guy to have her animalistic attentions assaulting your senses and violating your integrity. And we stayed this way for a while, maybe just short of an eternity, and she was finally left with the man she came in with. I wonder if I was there. Um, okay. Um, Bob. Bob came over the night that Frank Bonomo died, and there's a couple poets who had stopped by, including Lawrence Tyler, wanting to go out and just have a time distracting ourselves. And me and Bob, um, me and Bob, I couldn't handle it, so I just told them to go home. And Bob came over and he said, "I feel like shit." And he goes, "Let's go out and do something." So Bob and I went and drank coffee. Frank was a drug counselor. We always before that, when Andy died, our friend Andy Kakaris, we went and had the ceremonial, um, you know, death drunk, and we didn't do that when Frank died. In fact, we stopped doing that when Frank died. So, um, anyways, I'm going to read a poem that Bob wrote about Frank. There was another one that I can't seem to find. And look at all this poetry that Bob left me with. It's all over the place. Um, anyways, this is about Frank Bonomo. Slices of life just for today. Wandering in from the road, dusty and old, took a seat in life's cafe, adorned with old jive furniture, the kind that won't go away, and waited for somebody to attend to me in the fashion I'd suited my life to, instead of the middle-aged, divorced, plunk, promiscuous, serving women looking for men to support her 3 children. A man came out of the back and proceeded to sit at my table, his white apron encrusted with tomato sauce, cherubic face, quizzical smile, and Larry Fine hair belied his trade as a pizza maker. He offered up slices of life, and in trade for my crumbs. I shook my head at this madman and prepared to take my fill of his offerings, gladly exchanging my worthless crumbs that lined my life like a frame of a picture, and I ate these great slices of life greedily, never looking at the topping or questioning the ingredients. He laughed wholehearted and merrily, full with his crumbs. Funny it was. The more I ate, the more he laughed, the more people that appeared around us. I apparently had taken for granted as part of the scenery, the furniture now appeared newer than before, and I noted a jukebox playing, and excused myself politely, saying it was time for him to go. And it's funny. I wanted just to sit there forever. I inquired one last time about paying the check. His reply was, accept the crumbs others give you in life as my payment. I never saw him walk away, but I walked out of that cafe knowing I was a richer man. And then let me just kind of randomly find another one. I was looking for the other Frank poem that Bob wrote. I didn't expect to be reading so much Bob stuff. And Bob used to write these long, embellished stuff about his adventures in medical places. This is Bob's resume. 86 to present, Universal Scientific Corporation, Elk Grove Village. 86 to 86, Circuit Systems International, Edison. 83, 86, Elite Ammunition. 83 to 86. 82 to 83, Pentaplex in Schaumburg. 82, Electronic Engineering Venture Systems Incorporated in Elk Grove Village. 77 to 81, Mechatronics Corporation in Melrose Park. 76 to 77, D. Gottlieb Pinball Machine Company. 73 to 76, General Cinema Corporation, and that's where I knew him from, his General Cinema, after he had left the company and gone on to other things. But Bob had such passion for stuff that he did. Okay. This is something that I'm really happy that Bob kept. And I don't know if it's a complete poem. And I'll read the poem Bob based it on first. It was a memory called, it was a poem from Lawrence Tyler. And Lawrence Tyler wrote it 3/31/98. Dave is counting. It's about Frank Bonomo. Jesus, Frank, don't you know David's friend died a year and a half ago, and you, Frank, catch a bullet. Not just any bullet, a stray bullet, and now you're dead. Jesus, Frank, don't you know? Don't you know? David's counting. 2 of his best friends gone, and you. What about you, Frank? What am I going to do? Who's going to care and worry? What's become of us, Frank? You're gone. David's counting. And I just keep hearing your voice on the answering machine. I can't remember what you tried to tell me last Friday night. All I remember is your crazy laugh, your voice on the machine, knowing my friend won't be here to hold my hand, see me off when it's my turn. Jesus, Frank, I miss you. That was a poem by Lawrence Tyler, and I found this. It was notes to a poem that Bob was working on about Frank, and yeah, I feel like I'm counting all the time. John Dixon back there. Bob was a huge fan of John Dixon. When we met Frederick Pohl for the first time, when we met Frederick Pohl for the first time, goes reminds me of John Dixon, and you know, Bob was a huge fan of a whole bunch of different poets, and I'm counting them, I guess. Here's Bob. Bob's notes on a poem about Frank. Frank, where the hell are you? You asked me to read. I'm standing up here by myself, and I'm looking for you. So many times I read you tell me, just do it. Well, tonight I'm ready, and I'm waiting for your laugh. You're going to laugh and give me that quizzical smile, aren't you? It's okay, Yannick's going to say. It's just a moment out of time, so don't have to worry. It doesn't have to rhyme. Just do it, man. Just do it. Come on. And I wish that Bob would have shared these more than he did. And I will read some more of Bob's poetry in the future. I want to thank everybody for listening tonight. I want to thank for the patience of the bird. Sorry you ran so late tonight. I hope we still have some of the audience there. And anyways, we're going to be back next Monday. I don't know who I'm going to have. And I might just read a whole bunch of dead poets, because I'm in that kind of mood. But there's been these, serious, important deaths in my life, and Bob was one of them. Frank was one of them that Bob wrote about. Andy was one of them that Lawrence wrote about Frank. And Bob wrote about Frank, and Lee Kitsis wrote about me and Lawrence and Bob. Lee Kitsis, I remember at Lawrence's funeral that Bob was there, and Lee was kind of like a little bit teary-eyed too. And anyways, Bird, we'll talk about your Nietzsche thing next weekend. And I'm not in a Nietzsche kind of mood tonight, but I am kind of in a philosophical kind of mood tonight. Anyways, Bob was a phenomenal character who had this huge life. I always call myself an adventurer because there's life is not here. Okay, life is out there. Life is all over out there, and life, even though times are different right now, and we feel like we're kind of cooped up, even here, sitting alone in a room, there are all kind of adventures you could have. And if you look at Bob was a fine example. He had these adventures in his life, and he had that little thing that I call the elephants that was able to connect his life to something, to make literature and not just words on a paper. And everybody should take their lives and take them and encapsulate them, but you need that skill and that spark of life that will give your life. If your life doesn't have life, then your life was not life. An unexamined life is not worth living. And Bob lived this great, huge life, and I was privileged to know him, and privileged to know Frank, and privileged to know John Dixon, and privileged to know you all that are watching. And I appreciate you guys more than anything. And I'm doing this because, you know, so many people pay attention. Right, Bird? Well, he's not saying anything. I guess my mental illness is cured. See you next Monday, 7 p.m. I don't know what's going to be going on. I hope I don't need to run out of town, but it's possible I might, and so I might have to cancel the show. There's something blowing up in another state that I might have to go stop from blowing up. Wish Bob was here to help me. Good night, everybody. Sorry we're going so late. We've done this for 2 hours and 40 minutes, so I'm going to go take a nap. Bye-bye.